we are really excited to talk to a real life stuntman. I'm fascinated by the idea of a guy or gal who would choose to put himself or herself in the line of bruises and danger simply in the name of good TV or movies. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll get to that. But most recently, for our guest, Sean Kelly, he has turned into an author and a new project that he's got out that also itself will soon become a movie. So Sean Kelly, who's a longtime journalist as well as an actor and a stuntman, joining us now on After Hours. Sean, I'm wondering what's tougher, doing a crazy stunt that requires you to put yourself in danger or writing a book that you're going to put out there for all the world to read?
Amy, first of all, thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I'd like to clear up one thing about the stunt business. There are a lot of very talented people in that business that help films come to fruition in many ways other than just action acting. And though they do require some courage out of these talents, they often are in on, the good ones are in on camera placement and things like that. So there's a lot to the stunt business besides just getting your body bruised up. And I think that was one of the things that helped me write this book was I was on location and in studios for 25 years. And so when I wrote this book, I sort of saw it on the screen as I wrote it. And then I went from there. My wife was the editor. She's very literary. And as soon as I finished that book, she made me write the screenplay. and then I was fortunate enough through my stunt contacts to reach just a magical producer named Dana Kuznikoff, who now has taken the script from me and given it to Murphy Brothers Productions. And all of this was possible because I became a stuntman.
Mm. So the book is called South of the NBA, and you've told me that while it is a novel, it's based on a true story. So what's the story?
The story takes place in 1982 in northern Argentina, about 800 miles northwest of Buenos Aires, during the Dirty War. And that was when the country was under military dictatorship and people were disappearing. There is an estimate out there that says as many as 30,000 people disappeared. And what was funny about it down there at the time was you never saw anything happen. You just heard about it. And these two Americans, Joel Jefferson and Jesus Barbosa, are based upon actual players that tried out for the NBA for two different teams, and they ended up on this laughingstock team in northern Argentina in a city called San Miguel de Tucumán. And they turned this laughingstock team into a champion. And so it digested for many years, and there was some tragedy with one of the characters that just was crushing for all of us. He was such a great guy. And it was that experience as I went down there to watch my friend Jesus Barbosa, who's George Aguilar, and now a second unit director, in line to direct this picture. He was an amazing player, and Joel Thompson was out of the University of Michigan on that team that played against Kent Benson and Quinn Buckner and those guys who went undefeated that year. Joel was just a high raiser. And I got to see David Thompson in person in Carmichael down in Chapel Hill. And on a good day, Joel was up there with him. He could really raise. And it was so great to see Jesus Barbosa and Joel Jefferson, the real-life characters, play together. They were Stockton and Malone before Stockton and Malone. They were amazing. So I was supposed to be freelancing, Amy, but I didn't. I ended up going to every game those two guys played. So I had a blast doing that, and it was an amazing experience.
What was the atmosphere like around the basketball games in the basketball league, considering what you said? There was a dirty war going on. That was a lot of people disappearing. There was danger. And, there are a lot of things that were happening below the surface that maybe you didn't see and couldn't be proven.
You know what happened there? First of all, the basketball players were heroes. And yes, the military was ever present with their guns, and they were around, but it was peaceful. You never saw anything at the time. And I think because word got out that I was a freelancer, that I probably experienced more of that than they did. I was ducking a few people left and right who wanted to get their story to me and into America at the time. There was no cell phones or internet back then. It was communication took forever. You had to go to an international phone booth to make your call home, and it took it was amazing. It took to say hello to your mom. It took 3 hours sometimes. So the atmosphere around the basketball, Amy, was these two guys played in the most rudimentary gyms that at that point in time I think I had ever experienced. And it didn't matter. The magic of the game was even in northern Argentina before basketball had caught on to Argentina. And so, although there were electrical household lamp lights that lit basketball courts, and the courts were tiled, and sometimes they were dirty, and the refs, there was stuff under the table going on, and the calls weren't always good, But I think the magic of the game is everywhere, and if you possess that, you don't notice. However, in a pictorial sense, it was in great contrast to the United States and to the gyms those guys were used to playing in.
Sean Kelly is an actor, a stuntman, now an author. The book is called South of the NBA, and it's soon to be turned into a motion picture. It's After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. Sean, where did your love for basketball begin?
Right here in Washington, D.C. Morgan Wooten. Does that name ring a bell?
It doesn't. Not for me. I'm sorry.
Morgan Wooten. That's okay. Morgan Wooten he's a Hall of Fame high school basketball coach out of DeMatha High School. And he had a basketball camp at St. John's High School that was famous back then. And my mom shipped me off to there in 7th grade. And that's when I saw my first film of Coach Smith, Dean Smith, coaching North Carolina. And that was it. I said, okay, acting's aside. I told my mother I'm never acting again. She had me as a child actor up in New York, and we moved to Washington. I was still going up and auditioning. And I said, that's it. I'm walking on for Coach Smith. But, of course, I never made it past 5'9", and my 40 speed was about 4'7", running with the police, with the wind at my back. And I made the JV, and I had to try out, and it was an amazing experience. And then I kept stats for Coach Smith. But one of the things I got to do down there was my junior and senior year, Coach Smith allowed me for some reason to accompany him in the hallway to every press conference. And so I got to watch him work his magic during those moments. And again, you don't get that in the classroom. That was really great.
That is awesome. And obviously Dean Smith, one of those guys that had forgotten more about basketball than most of us would ever know in our lifetimes. So Sean, Sean, you have this love for basketball, and you're a writer, and you mentioned the time that you spent on set and even being a child actor. I still say, though, that the fascinating part is the stunt, since it's so unknown to so many of us average Joe and Junes. So what type of stunts were common for you or have been common for you in your career?
Well, I'm older now, but there are a lot of guys that are really gifted stuntmen that have their specialties, like the motocross guys and their car guys, and then there are guys that are real good at rappelling and rigging. And there's, I would have to say I was a real good second in car scenes, fight scenes, was strong in water. But where I excelled, Amy, I think towards the end of my career was I was able to give lines as an action actor. But I did, if you were to ask me my most dangerous stunt, it was probably a 50-foot high fall over in Prague in a movie called The Shooter. And I had to spin on one foot 180 degrees before I dropped off.
Oh.
And I called the wife before I did it at 4 a.m. I was in Prague. We had two in diapers. And I said, you know what? I'm kind of nervous. And she said, you just go up to the top of that building and fall off the best you can. We've got a mortgage to pay. So I got out of that one, and that was one I hope I never have to do again. It was a dangerous drop-off, if you know what I mean. You have to sit into thin air and just kind of control your body on the way down without seeing where you're going.
Well, what was at the bottom?
Well, there are two ways to do a high fall. You can do them into into an airbag, which you may see in gymnastics and pole vaulting and things like that.
Okay.
But really, the most remarkable thing about the stunt business are boxes, cardboard boxes.
You fell into cardboard boxes?
Cardboard, I kid you not. 4 rows of 2x2 cardboard boxes, and I went through 3 rows and never felt a thing.
Oh, my gosh.
They're the most amazing things. I think the highest high fall into boxes that I remember being told to me by someone credible in the business, Andy Armstrong, was 220 feet. I know. Terminal velocity.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. But it's great to do a fight scene. The shootouts were always fun. Car stuff is a great gig, if you have the aptitude for it. Not all stuntmen do, but not all car guys can, do a good fight scene. So there's a mix, and it's good to be well-rounded because then you can be used more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did you ever get hurt?
I would say both my shoulders need to be repaired, but they were just banged up. I wouldn't say they there's a difference between being injured and being banged up.
Okay.
Going back to one after you've been banged up is a must in the stunt business. And if you get hurt a lot, you don't get hired.
Ah, there you go. It's like an athlete.
That's right. If you just because you may have banged something up or broken this or that, if you get back to one and give them one more take, that's what you try to do anyway. You do that to the best of your ability with pain as your barometer. But, for the most part, I got out of it pretty cleanly. You pad up and you train and you stay in shape. And either you can you can't teach people how to go down a flight of stairs. Either you can do it or you can't.
So, Sean, what was your favorite movie or TV project that you ever did?
I've been asked that a lot. And I say without hesitation, Gangs of New York.
Ooh.
Directed by Martin Scorsese, which was shot in shot in Rome. I went over there for 6 weeks. And this is, if you have time, it's a pretty good story. But the same guy, Jesus Barbosa, George Aguilar, was the stunt coordinator for Gangs of New York. And he had about 6 of his people from the United States go over, all of whom looked like Irish bad guys. So I didn't have to dig down too deep for that. And we all went over to Rome and worked in this amazing place called Cinecittà, which is where The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was filmed.
Okay.
And it's in the middle of Rome, and it's this wonderful studio that takes up a couple of blocks, and it's like its own oasis. And people that do all the set designing there come up through the family. There's no MFA at the University of Rome. It's passed down through genetics. And I did a fight scene with Daniel Day-Lewis and Liam Neeson. I played a crony to Daniel Day-Lewis and started this huge gang war by getting sliced in half by Liam Neeson.
Oh, gosh.
Now, what was funny about that picture was the first strike by Liam Neeson, who's 6'4", is a swing backwards with a sword, kind of a reverse move after I hit him on the shoulder with a scythe. And there were 2,000 people there, Amy, and Martin Scorsese and Joe Reedy, all these directors that have been through many, many films. And so Liam Neeson swung his sword, and it was coming right for my head, and I ducked. And everybody went quiet. And I was like, come on, man, you can't expect me to take one in the head. So that was rectified, and we ended up doing this fight scene, and that started this really neat 6 weeks of fighting in Rome.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun. And there were probably 200 Italian guys. There were a wonderful stunt troupe in from Bratislava, Slovakia. They were in from England. And so it was just a great group of people. And it was always good to work for. I've worked for Martin Scorsese before. And then, if I may, right when I said, George, I got to go home, they were done, and he said, okay, you can leave. He called me and said, you have to audition for a fight scene with Cameron Diaz. I said, what do you mean? He said, they want you to audition for this fight scene with Cameron Diaz. They needed a guy to rough her up but not hurt her, who could deliver a couple of lines.
Uh-huh.
My wife was home waiting for me to come home. And I auditioned twice for him. And at 2 o'clock, before a car was coming to take me to the airport, George called. And he says, Scorsese likes your audition the best. And I said, well, what's that mean? He said, well, go home. Just be ready to come back Wednesday. It was like Friday, you know. And so I walked in, and my wife said, oh, you're home. And I said, well, not really. When I told her what I was about to do, she said, oh, no, you're not. Anyway, long story short is they took an older actor out of England, and I missed that opportunity.
Oh, no, Cameron Diaz. That could have been something really special.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my favorite movie.
Amazing. Well, you need to write a book about all these different stunt experiences and all your different travels. But for now, you guys need to check out South of the NBA. I'm holding it in my hands right now by Sean Kelly. It's in the hands of a movie director, producer, and will be turned into a picture. But the book is always better. And my producer, Tom, tells me, Sean, you don't have Twitter. So how can people find you?
It's my nickname. Right now is Metro, METCHROE.
Okay.
At Gmail.
You actually giving people your email address?
I don't mind. You know, it's my Gmail address. I mean, I don't have a Twitter. If somebody really needs to get in touch and they want to read my book, of course, I'm wide open to that.
Well, you know what? I already knew you were far braver than me, but now you've proved it on national radio. Sean, it's been so good to connect with you. We're going to have to keep in touch. And the stunt stories are fantastic. You need to come on and tell some more the next time we have an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.